So I just saw Wicked for Good, and I'm going to give you my review here today. I saw it at Amazon Prime early screening. There's going to be multiple early screenings, so I'm sure whatever. Um, this is going to be a spoiler review for the most part. I'm going to do some non-spoiler talk, and then I'll warn you when we get into spoilers. There is just so much wrong with this movie that I really cannot express to you without spoiling shit, unfortunately. This movie is not bad by any means, but it does have a lot of problems. So let's get into that. So first, let me kind of just restate some of my thoughts with the first movie and my knowledge of the source material. I read the book after the first movie, so I know a little bit more than I did. I still have not seen the Broadway show, so I don't really know how to compare things to that. There's details I knew about this movie from just hearing people talk about the Broadway show, but not really. But I did really love that first movie. I've shown it to multiple people. I've seen it multiple times. I was very shocked by how much I loved that movie because that was kind of one of those movies that I didn't expect to do well or really be into upon its announcement. But sitting in the theater at that early screening, I really fell in love with it. And this movie, I was very excited for, but also very cautious for because it felt like a lot of the things I was hearing about this movie, where I knew the second half of the story focused on setting up the Wizard of Oz, and I just didn't. And also, they threw so much story in that first movie, and that first movie was the length of the Broadway show, and then this movie is going to be another movie. It just confused me on how a lot of that played out. I was just very cautiously optimistic about it. We'll just say it like that. So, but here's what I will say: you're gonna go see this movie anyways. Anyone who saw that first movie is gonna want to know how the story ends. This movie's gonna make $1 billion. Let's not even kid ourselves, right? So I'm not here to tell you to not go see the movie. I'm just here to tell you my thoughts. And from some non-spoiler point of view, the best way to sum up what's wrong with this movie is this is the least musical part of the story. Most of the music is reprisals from the original movie, like the Wizard of Oz, things like that, and bringing some of those notes back to it. And then also the so much of this part of the story is setting up the Wizard of Oz in a way that just felt clunky and messy and weird and just didn't really work for me. I think, but by the end of it, a lot of the emotional beats and character beats, which is really what's the most important part of the story, hit well enough that I was happy. But it did make me go, wow, that first movie I could instantly go back to the theater and see again. This one I could not. I will definitely see it again because there's going to be a time where I'm going to want to see both versions back to back as one kind of movie. Where this right now I'm not going to be able to do that just for time's sake because I know some theaters are doing double features, but I can't do that at the moment. So sorry, my dog is making noise back there. I was like, what are you doing back there, buddy? But yeah, so I'm just saying all that. So let's get into spoilers. Um, One of the first complaints I really had with this movie is the way her sister character is treated. Like her character dies by getting crushed by Dorothy's fucking house. And the way it played in the theater, people clapped because they knew it was bringing in the Wizard of Oz. But it felt so awkward that it was like kind of comical. Like they didn't really sit on the death and let you mourn this character, who you did get to see a lot of in that first movie, and had kind of a tragic story in this one. She kind of turned into a villain in this one, trying to keep this Munchkin boy that she loved hostage, and that was fucked up. But you also understand why she's in this situation because he didn't really love her, but pretending to love her, and that's kind of fucked up. So it's this awkward part of the story. But it just like, why could we not sit and mourn that character? Like when Alphaba says, "Can I have a moment alone to mourn my sister?" It's not really treated that way. Or when Glinda gives away the shoes, just felt like maybe we need to see that beat, but we didn't get to because they just kind of rushed through some things. That's another thing. This movie felt rushed because like the first movie's 2 hours 45, but this one's 2 hours 17. But this one has the most parts of the story because it's setting up the Wizard of Oz. Like Fiyero turns into the Scarecrow, you barely even see that. And there's so many parts like that, by the way, where it sets up the Wizard of Oz, and it's so awkward. Like the guy, the Munchkin turning into the Tin Man, was so awkward how that was done, and you don't even get because that part comes in and it's horrifying, and you're like, oh shit, and then you kind of forget about it because he disappears from the movie for so long. And then same thing with the Cowardly Lion. It's like what the fuck. I barely even understood his part of the story. I wish we'd kind of seen flashbacks to kind of understand why he'd become the Cowardly Lion and like that. It was a little bit weird. Fiyero turning into Scarecrow was like, we saw enough of it to understand, but it felt very awkward. So I was like, okay, some of these beats are like just here to set up the Wizard of Oz. And I know that some people might be angry that they don't really show Dorothy in this one. Because Dorothy, the director already mentioned this, that you're not going to see her face because she's just part of the Wizard and Elphaba's plan. And I was like, that's fine. I don't mind that. But it just felt awkward. Also, can we ever get a better Dorothy than Judy Garland, right? So, didn't mind that. But it was just, some of it just felt so awkward. And then you get them trying not to shoot Dorothy made it feel a little bit more awkward when she had to kind of crawl her way into the story. And, I get why the Wizard of Oz stuff has to be here because this is based on the Wizard of Oz, and it's a little frustrating. I didn't really enjoy a lot of that stuff. And I really didn't. I really also, there was a big twist that the wizard was Elphaba's father, which is fine, but holy fucking shit, like the way they revealed it was so clunky. Because it's right at the end of the movie, and he realizes, I fucked up, I caused all this drama for no fucking reason, and then he leaves. And you're like, shouldn't we have more to that story? It's just so fucking awkward, the way everything plays out here. I just felt like that's the problem with this movie. Is all these beats, some of them make sense, other ones don't. I would say about 75% of them do, but they're just so clunkily put together. I really like this movie conceptually and a lot of its ideas. Just wish it had been handled better. Also, there is so much Jeff Goldblum singing and Michelle Yeoh singing in this movie, a lot more than that first movie, and they are bad fucking singers. They're not bad actors. Also, I do like, one thing I will say I really like about this movie, is that if the commentary about what was really going on in this movie, in that first movie, and some of the ideas being expressed, wasn't obvious, it'll be a lot more obvious here. Jeff Goldblum's song is literally about politicians and corruption and all these things, which yes was there in the first movie, but it's a lot more obvious here. That racism allegories were not hidden in that first movie, not subtle, but they're a lot more obvious here. So, well, not a lot more obvious, but a little more obvious. So I don't know. It's a powerful story. I think they really made something special, but it is just kind of like, it is one of those finales that you're like, it's I guess it was about the journey. It's about the journey, not the destination. But once you got to the destination, the end, it did feel satisfying. And I just wish that middle chunk of the story, which is what this is, it felt a little more even to that. Because honestly, the last, I want to say hour to 45 minutes was like, I was locked in. But that first hour was so clunky and all over the place, and beats didn't really flow properly, that it just made me feel like, what the fuck is even happening, guys? Let me know your thoughts, like, share, and subscribe.